Welcome to Hour 2 of the NutriMedical Report and Clay and Iron Show. And we analyze the news, bring in the top experts in the world to cut through the matrix, and no better than Alan Watt, cuttingthroughthematrix.com. He's got some amazing documents in ring-bound so that you can actually go through them. And his websites are translated to many languages so that people around the world are literally learning the dialectic of control and confusion and mind control. Some of the latest gets pretty real when you're doing, as he lives in Ontario, Canada, shoveling for literally an entire week because they've been doing climate manipulation, not climate control, in advance of this UN climate summit that they're having in Bali, Indonesia. Welcome to the program, Alan.
It's a pleasure to be here eventually. I've got out of the snow.
Well, it's one way to get you out of shoveling. The latest news, there's so much news there. I just want to hit some high points because I figured always grist for the mill. Sudan's president pardons teddy bear teacher. What do you think of this? This is unbelievable. She names a teddy bear as part of a little school project, Mohammed, and they call for her execution. Are we dealing with an entire people that are now becoming radicalized to the point where they're so mind controlled now we just need to go boo and they're ready to kill? This is pretty bizarre.
It is. I mean, we've lived through a generation of manipulation of the mind. I mean, most people who are in their 30s, even 40s, and even 50s have gone through incredible planned societal changes to make them aggressive and so on, to make them not think for themselves, more especially, and to simply be downloaded by advertising. You have an advertising culture here. People don't realize that gave us the culture, and plus we have a generation who've been grown up with the video games that were designed for the military to desensitize them to killing and from being aggressive. So I'm not surprised. This is exactly what was planned, you know. Now the teddy bear first came in with Theodore Roosevelt. That was named after him, you know.
Right.
And he was the first guy who started off this, what became eventually, many years later, the United Nations biospheres. He was one of the biggest hunters in the U.S. I've got photographs with him and his buddies standing amongst the hundreds and hundreds of game animals they'd killed in a day's shoot. And yet he was the guy that started the conservation because it was to take over step-by-step forests and whole areas of the United States. So they named the teddy bear after him.
Yeah, isn't it funny? One of the very guys that's doing it, and of course it was under Teddy Roosevelt that they start the bioweapons project that eventually developed in the United States the first outbreak of the swine flu. It's not an avian flu in 1918, which killed my grandmother's brother and sister, and 40 to 100 million people worldwide, based on various different data. The numbers vary between 40 and 100 million. And it's the same genes that show up in the 1997 to now 2007 avian flu that has been done literally by weaponizing the fragments of this 1918 flu and upgrading it to avian genes so it looks like it's a spontaneous avian flu. All part of the agenda. We've got the documents. This is not conjecture. We're not conspiracy theorists. We're conspiracy researchers, and we're trying, like you do, teaching people to see, cut through the matrix so they don't become a victim, because our greatest danger isn't George Bush and even Blackwater. Our greatest dangers are unprepared neighbors that don't believe us.
That's it. Again, you have a culture today who have been, and again, the elite themselves coined the term conspiracy theory to ridicule those who are talking about documented fact.
Right.
And then they do put out fake ones there that mystify the public. They always give you the pipers. It started with Aleister Crowley, who started a massive cult up, a Masonic organization, to mislead the people and get them into channeling and all the rest of it.
Oh, yeah.
And they keep churning them out, too. And a lot of the public today would prefer the fascinating stories rather than look at the hard facts or the truths. It's less appealing to them. And it's hard work wading through old books, especially ones printed and put out and published by foundations and think tanks and the memoirs of big players in this agenda. That's too boring for them. They prefer I call it the circus, because that's what they give you in this world, is a circus.
You want the Cirque du Soleil in terms of politics, entertainment. In other words, let me entertain you, just like the Hollywood musical. They don't really want to know the truth, and because a society requires citizens that actively participate in their democracy, in their control, in their autonomy, they don't have any. They don't realize that they...
It's worse, because some very popular shows are always put out there. They're often on it late at night when you're almost in a somnambulistic state, just like the late night news. You're half sleeping, and I call it the circus. And sometimes I bring guests on who'll talk about the straight facts. The next night it's I had sex with an alien type of thing. That's the circus, and it becomes a freak show.
Right. And of course, they also try to mix it all together. They'll say, like their latest House Bill 1995, I believe it is the number, that says that it's called the Domestic Security Protection Act, that basically is trying to attack streaming broadcasting, internet radio, etc., saying that we're inciting if you want to call pre-crime, we're inciting the idea of terrorism, when all we're doing is asking questions which lead us to the step-by-step questions that says, look, 9/11 was an inside job, they're weaponizing our food, they're doing things like the Security and Prosperity Partnership, they're trying to make a false scientific claim that carbon dioxide is a death gas, and it's a lie. And we have people like myself that are qualified, and people like yourself that read through all these ancient and old documents, and we prove it. And it's like, don't confuse us with the truth. You are crazy. And we say you're crazy, therefore you are, even though we're not talking about a theory, we're talking about documents in many cases that's actually statements by them in the public domain. That's what's so bizarre about the whole thing.
That's right. In the papers a few years ago, in the mainstream newspapers, the U.S. Air Force admitted that they would shortly control the weather. And they signed the Weather Warfare Treaty at the United Nations in the late 70s. Everything you're seeing happening today with climate change is in that treaty. They can cause it all by HAARP and the spraying that they're doing. And they can create storms. And this storm that's going on right now for the last week or so up here has gone on along with the heaviest spraying that's ever happened along the East Coast and New England and Maine and so on prior to the storm breaking out. So this is the formula they're giving us. But to the general population, just before that big United Nations environment conference they're having, we have this big storm. We always get this just before they have their big global meetings on climate change.
Yeah, isn't
and
it
the general
funny?
public will never fathom it out. They'll never they'll believe it's just too much CO2 and all this nonsense.
Well, of course, in fact, we've had various experts talking about the fact that as the sun heats up, as the geothermal activity, where 80% of the active volcanoes are under the oceans, you're going to have increased global rainfall while the Earth is warming from the sun, not from SUVs. Yeah. And that causes increased rainfall that can cause an ice age in the northern latitudes while the whole Earth is heating up.
Yes, and we've had so many in the past, and that used to be in junior school geography books.
Right.
That was known. That was quite known. I mean, when I went to school, we went through hundreds of ice ages with warming periods between where all the ice was melted, and then we go through these cycles over and over again.
Right, caused by increased rainfall. Rainfall causes ice age, not global cooling. It's caused by increased rainfall. That's science. We've had Dr. Timothy Ball. I've gone through many different panels. I'm an environmental scientist myself, and when I see these things with lies like Igor trying to say it's such a big problem and people are the problem, and here he's a liar. He's got these massive homes and private jets and everything, and then they say they're going to buy carbon credits, as if that's going to save the planet by buying carbon credits. It's just absolutely obscene. It's a slap in the face to the public. It's trying to treat us like you're a bunch of idiot children, and we're not going to take it anymore. We're calling them liars, and we're not going to take the House of Representatives or the Senate or anyone else in any other government on this earth lying to us and telling us they're going to take away our rights. That's enough's enough, and we're going to. That's why we're putting out documents like this, and they can do all they want to try to shut us up. They're not going to. We'll be back in a moment with Alan Watt, and we're going to cut through lots of other interesting stories that are in the news today. Cutting Through the Matrix, Alan Watt, that website, cuttingthroughthematrix.com. Get his documents, get this material, and you'll understand exactly how they're trying to manipulate and control every aspect of your life, your biology, your climate, everything you do, they want control of. They're control freaks, and they're evil. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to the NutriMedical Report, and lots of news going on. United Russia wins. Of course, Putin sees a moral mandate and vote, and of course, Putin's trying to change the law so he can have, just like Hugo Chavez, I guess these guys should be twins separated by continents. They want to be eternal leaders by manipulating the political process. South America and the rising bear of Russia. We see also the moves toward this globalization. Now a new Prime Minister of Australia, he signed the Kyoto Accord, which had been stonewalled by the previous Prime Minister. Tell us your comments about some of these developments, Alan.
Well, I think they're setting up a system. You see, you need perpetual war, or the threat of war, to hold control over and power over the people. That's always been understood in high quarters. That's why we allow ourselves to be taxed for the possibilities that might happen to us to keep us safe. That's what we hear done through the centuries. And George Orwell, who was brought in on this plan very early on, he came from a long lineage of high governmental employees for Her Majesty's government. He knew that they'd eventually have this ongoing war to keep the public in their place under their dominion, and he called it East Asia, West Asia, and Oceania. And so you had these perpetual wars, or the threats of them, going on all the time, where in reality there was a treaty signed by the leaders of all these places to keep the wars going, and it killed off a good portion of the population. It kept the numbers down. It enabled them to tax and run the people and rule people's lives with a dictatorial system in every country. And so what we're seeing is all the safety catches in case Plan A doesn't work, so they go to Plan B or Plan C. And all these different levels of organization are working simultaneously to create this future. If they can get their global system where we all buckle under, and H.G. Wells wrote about this. He said after World War I, the people haven't given up all of their sovereignty. We need another world war to bring them to their knees, to bring them under a world government. And then after World War II, just before he died in 1948, he said the same thing again. We need another war. And so this is standard policy, and H.G. Wells was an official authorized propagandist for this regime, and the Royal Institute for International Affairs is behind this.
We see it with Russia. All of the ashes of glasnost and perestroika, now they're the number one oil producer in the world, all of a sudden Berezovsky and the other oligarchs are kicked out, and they've got their own private banking system. We see the rise of China with all our business literally exported right over to China. It's just suicide, and we're seeing this doesn't make sense. And we see America with a massive internal economy that's somewhere estimated around $1,500 trillion in the actual value of America and its business, with this tiny little debt. Even if it was $45 to $90 trillion, it's nothing compared to the size of the economy. And yet everyone's concerned about what's going on. They decouple the dollar because they control the whole process. They want to decouple it because they want to crash the economy. And at the same time, they're meeting over there in Bali to tell us that we now have to outlaw carbon dioxide, which is what, as they say, is created when you breathe out.
That's right.
They're going to outlaw cows having gas.
Yes.
This is how crazy. We have a caller, Dave in California. Your question for Alan Watt or myself, go right ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, hi. I was just sitting here looking out my window and watching them put down the chemtrails, which they've been doing for about 10 years. And I just wanted to mention something that might help people. I don't know. When they first started, I bought a home air purifier, a whole house air purifier with a HEPA filter and a catalytic...
and we know this. In fact, the latest research I posted on Friday was that they've proven, rated the World Health Organization, the best protection is personal hygiene, airway protection, and so on. And you're right. As soon as you start detoxing your body, as soon as you have a whole host filtration system, these toxins, even if they're sprayed out outside, and I tell people, even if you're out in the farm, you better have the capacity of 100 mil poly and be ready to grow food in some kind of enclosed space, because they're going to try to spray or start a nuclear war, so you're going to have to go to their facility to have non-toxic, non-radioactive food. This is all part of their plan to control the population.
I've been using a lot of your products for quite a while now, including the detox methods, and it's great. I feel much better.
Well, that's good, you see, because the thing is, if you keep the temple, as it says in the Bible, if you keep the temple clear, if you keep your body, clear of foolishness, and that includes inside and outside the church, because there's a lot of foolishness that's said. No one's supposed to be brainless. You're supposed to be able to go and check it out yourself and use critical thinking, and that's what we're trying to do on this program with experts like Alan. Get people to be critical and also spiritual. Be connected to your environment. Understand that we are responsible for allowing smokestacks to put out pollutants, which is bad. But carbon dioxide is not the cause of it. And to talk about connecting it to population reduction and international weaponization of our food with the World Trade Organization, it's just plain evil. And they always change and control it. And they control both sides. We have the latest with Mr. Dion, the opposition minister in Canada, going to go to the Bali summit uninvited. Of course, they have to create this dialectic like they're somehow a conflict, when actually the globalists have put both Mr. Dion on the liberal side and Mr. Harper on the other side, just like they're doing the same thing with Hillary Clinton and Obama on one side, and they've got a bunch of people lined up on the Republican side, ignoring the real both sides of the snake, as they move.com. Can you talk a little bit about that? What are the primary things you're trying to teach people in these documents? You know, you talk about the various issues that need to be discussed in terms of understanding the educational system, the training system for doctors and attorneys and engineers and politicians, the total corruption of the mind control on every level that even calls out those who are, can see through the matrix. They try to push to higher levels within inside their pyramid of power so they can control those. And they've done it to you. I'm sure they've tried to recruit me many times to do the same thing, because when they see someone who actually sees through the matrix, they say, oh my gosh, we got a live one here. We better put them high up so we can really control them, as it says, in Sun Tzu, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. They want to completely control those who can see through the garbage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. And, the offers come because they can always use your intellect. That's what they want.
Stay on the line, Dave, if you have some more questions. We'll be back in a moment with Alan Watt, cutting through the matrix, and lots more news to reflect on what's going on today, early December 2007. We'll be back in just a moment. Your call is 866-582-9933.
Listening to GCN. Be sure to visit GCNlive.com today.
Welcome back to the NutriMedical Report. We have Alan Watt, cutting through the matrix. Alan, I'd like to get some more opinions on some of the various issues. The cutting off of fuel to the Palestinians, the Bali conference that's going on. The UN kicks off the Bali Climate Conference, setting an agenda for the post-2012 period, setting an agenda for negotiations and reaching agreement, pushing forward this Kyoto Accord, which will devastate Western business. It's not really a solution, and the real technologies that will reduce pollution, that dramatically will switch the whole economy to a non-grid based system, is not being discussed at all. Lots of issues. The linkage to population control, like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, and Planned Unparenthood, of course, the eugenics movement, original lie. Give us some of your wisdom in these areas.
Well, as far as using the climate and all of these massive, heavily funded organizations that have been given governmental approval, they're all NGO groups,
Right.
And they're run by the big foundations who actually work for the Royal Institute for International Affairs. You'll find that same link with them all.
Right, and of course linked directly, that's on the British side, UK side, with the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations in New York. Yes,
and what they said a long time ago was they'd have to set up a parallel government because this democracy was just too untidy. They couldn't get enough done because everyone was arguing. Therefore, they'd have to set up their plans for the future in an alternative system, a parallel government. And that's what Carol quickly called it, a parallel government. Margaret Thatcher called it the same thing after she left politics and joined the same group as a spokesperson. So it's already here. And through this massive planning of the future, always planning the future with a vastly reduced population and obedient public, they have to train everyone from childhood onwards into this new system that we must have a new religion based on a form of earth worship backed up with pseudo-science. But the only science you'll hear is the pseudo-science, and you think that's all there is.
Yeah, and it is Earth's worship. And again, it goes right back to the to the idea that the highest levels, if you want to look at this, of Sabbatean, Masonic, Kabbalistic Judaism, are literally humanism, which goes right back to those 13 levels above the 33rd degree, the illuminated levels, as they call it, are basically saying there is no God, you're God. And in fact, they're worshiping the earth, and they say that you're the arbiters. They have the ceremony of the Kiss of Nu, which is their god of death, which is why the death head's on the Nazis' helmets. It's why they go into the coffin and yell skull and bones. It's a death cult. And we have Bill Gates here now. The latest is Doomsday Seed Vault in the Arctic.
Yes,
and Bill Gates has put in a lot of money in this.
Bill Gates is he's a gatekeeper for the Internet. He was the only authorized person that every government somehow, never told why, agreed this is the only one that must predominate.
Right, and of course it was the Department of Defense, trillions of dollars of money, and all of a sudden Bill Gates just walks in. Turns out his father was one of the founding board members of Planned Parenthood.
Yes,
Interesting, hey?
And he's descended from the top propagandist for the first Rockefeller, Nelson Rockefeller, and in fact his father was the guy they pulled in to give him a new image as a philanthropist, and now Bill Gates is the philanthropist. You see.
Oh yeah.
They're all connected with the same foundations. Because the foundations are simply arms of this parallel government, and they have been for 200 years. Yeah,
and where they're building this giant seed vault is 1,100 miles from the North Pole.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really bizarre. People, if you wrote a movie about this, they'd say you're crazy about this remote spot called Svalbard, Svalbard is Svarbald, and investing millions in a seed bank in the Barents Sea. This is up in the Arctic Circle.
Yeah.
And they're doing this 1,100 kilometers from the North Pole in a barren piece of rock claimed by Norway and ceded in 1925 by international treaty. So what they're doing here is they obviously know something they're not going to tell us, whether it's a natural disaster or one they're going to create or amplify. They're certainly not helping the populations if there's going to be a problem along the global climate shift, which has nothing to do with carbon dioxide that's being generated by industry. It's like a pimple on the back of an elephant looked at from 10 miles away. You do not see the pimple. Carbon dioxide is not the problem. It's the sun, stupid. Because we had articles last week. It's one of the articles that was there. It's the geothermal activity at the bottom of the oceans at 700 degrees. And the pure bull-faced lies even tried to geoengineer the oceans by putting a toxin, iron filings, at the top of the ocean, iron sulfate, trying to see if they can make the algae bloom to act as a carbon dioxide sink is just insane. They'll destroy the oceans, and then if the oxygen drops, people won't even be able to breathe unless they're in a dome city. What you find is most of these big budgets never go to what they claim to the public. They go for other purposes, and it's nefarious purposes they don't want to tell you about. They have just as many little arcs down in Antarctica as they do in the north. Right. And those are the ones they don't talk about. Have you heard of a thing called the Horizon Project? This is, by the way, classified information I'm going to release today. Have you heard of that?
I've heard the name, yeah.
Horizon Project is a project that's being carried on by the above government agencies, these foundations, to the tune of trillions of dollars to identify people of reproductive age, of superior physical and mental abilities, so that when the Earth goes through cataclysm, they can be hauled into one of 4,000 underground cities in countries around the world while the Earth goes through cataclysms of annihilation. This is a project which is actually well advanced. It started back in the 1940s, full force. They have tunnel boring machines that make the tunnel device look like a Model T. It's
That's
ridiculous.
a Rand Corporation,
Yeah. And these documents are out there. And the fact is that we see the patents. If you actually go to my websites and look back, you'll see the patents for technology that's decades, if not centuries ahead of anything people think even could exist anytime even later this century. And we've had it for years.
Yeah, and that's why they get away with it. They give us popular science and what they're trying to work on, and one day they hope to achieve. And meanwhile, it's old stuff. They've already done it long ago.
Right, just the same way as life extension technology. You know that they belong to the Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. They don't want to share this with people. They don't want to really detox people. They don't want to really extend life. They want to shorten your health span first and make you dumb, stupid, and sick on 5 pills by the time you're 40, and then they want you dead early, and they want to contract human health span first and lifespan, so like the movie Soylent Green. We have Cecil in Austin, Texas. Your question for Alan Watt. Go right ahead. You're on the air.
Yes, Dr. Deagle and Mr. Watt. I read a book back in 73, 74 when I was a freshman in high school, and it was written by a congressman about the dangers of transporting chemical and biological weapons on trains through cities. I don't remember the congressman's name, but I do remember one passage in there where they had a substance. He was really concerned about a substance called VX or GX, and it was so deadly that just an ounce or two could wipe out everyone in North America, and I didn't believe it. Well, 4 years later, I went off to college, and I asked my chemistry professor, and he was like in his 50s or 60s, so he'd been around the block a few times. And I lied to him. I said, yeah, I read about this stuff, or a couple of gallons could wipe out everyone in Texas. And he said to me, son, there are substances where just a few ounces could wipe out everyone in the northern hemisphere. That was a chemistry professor. Now, if that's true, if they had that potential back then, why didn't they just kill us off back then?
Because they still needed enough of the population. See, we've all worked their plan into being.
Right.
They've needed, especially the U.S., they had to fund it. They were told to take over from Britain with controlling a world empire. And that was discussed in your own Congress and in your Senate back in 1918. And so the U.S. has been taken over from that. And you've funded all of this into existence. You've supplied the world army that was to take over from Britain. And that's why you're all over the planet. And now they see the end in sight. That's now they're pushing ahead for the reduction of the population. Not probably instantaneously. They'll probably give us pandemics to start, because that kills off more slowly in controlled areas and wherever you release it. So that's probably how they'll bring it off, I'd imagine.
But what did we bring into existence, the people, the peons, us, that they couldn't do themselves?
Well, you've got to remember that even some of the supposed best scientists have come from all levels and walks of life.
That's right. They're spontaneous. The IQ 200s are spontaneous. They're not out of their breeding programs. They're from us, the general public.
Yes. And so they need your brains to work it all out. And we have actually invented pretty well everything that we're after, mainly in the weaponry department.
I'd like to ask one more question about
Sure, stay online. We'll take that question right after this break. Your call is 866-582-9933. We'll be back in a moment with Alan Watt.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio? Well, search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
I remember when I lost my mind.
Well, don't lose your mind, and that's why you're listening to this program here on GCN. Get your local radio stations to pick up the program. The NutriMedical Report, Clay and Iron Show. We cover a broader range of topics from medicine, geopolitics, the dialectics of mind control. Top experts like Alan Watt, Dr. Nick Begich, Jonathan Gray, Tex Mars, Jeff Grupp on telescreen and the corporatism, Dr. Jerome Corsi, Barry Chamish, Dr. William Ray, so many top experts we have in the program. He has more questions for Alan. Go right ahead. You're on the air.
Yes, one more question. The Tesla technology, is it able to replace internal combustion engines? And they obviously are keeping it secret. I don't hear anything about it. If it is good, and how does it work?
So there's several different technologies. First is the PICC, the pre-injection catalytic cracker technology. It'll be launching in the next few months. One of my colleagues, Dr. Neil Spite, who's an environmental doctor, actually owns some distributorship in this technology, which is American-made in New Jersey. It can increase gas mileage by 100 to 150%. This is real. There's all kinds of other technologies. I was sent a patent a year ago of a patent that was done 3 years ago from a guy in California that actually gave me the actual patent. I went on the patent website on the U.S. Patent Office of a non-moving parts Tesla, energy machine. And these technologies are suppressed. Just using hydrogen pumps. You can use methane and pump it down in the oceans. Just the temperature difference from the top of the ocean water to the bottom. You can generate all kinds of power. Geothermal, solar activity. They're suppressing solar cells coming in from Japan that are far more efficient. all kinds of technology that will get you off the grid. The grid will not survive the global climate shift that's coming, and it has nothing to do with carbon dioxide. It's not, the grid's not going to make it, and in fact they're going to shut off the grid if there's a natural disaster, there's a pandemic, or there's anything that they call code red terrorism. They're going to shut the grid off in the U.S. and Canada and in other nations, South America and elsewhere, on purpose to control the population. Your comments, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, I knew when I was small that already the internal combustion engine was an ancient design. They've never really improved it with all their wires and so on, and the tubes all over the engine. Really, it's all gimmickry. They haven't really improved it. And then I went into the United Nations Agenda 21 for the 21st century. And it tells you right in there that in this planned society that's coming up, where you'll all live in these compact areas. Mainly, most of the people will go into the already overcrowded cities. That's what you saw in Soylent Green. That there will be no private property. It'll be rental only. And that there'll be no private vehicles either, only essential vehicles. So you're only given freedom for the automobile while you were useful as an industrial type society. That era is over. Now it's time to get us all back into the areas where we cannot travel at will.
That's why the Bali conference is to take away your car, put you in compacted cities, have public transportation only, to have total control over your food supply. It'll be grown, as Dr. Isley from the Federation of Earth Agreement, he's a physicist from the University of Colorado, the Department of the School of Mines there. These people have plans. They plan on literally not only weaponizing our food, they're now talking about irradiating fresh vegetables that come into the United States, irradiating meat, making sure the World Trade Organization can put countervailing tariffs if you don't put GMO foods allowed into countries, weaponized food with pesticides. It's already been previously banned even 20 years ago. This is determined to try to destroy you. And if you're a doctor and you speak out against this, the state medical board will pull your license for saying it's not a good idea to do Gardasil DNA vaccines because we're seeing vasculitis and autoimmune diseases. In previous times, it would be considered an abomination, but now it's considered totally acceptable. The doctor has no legal rights, just like Dr. William Ray, who's a top environmental doctor in the world, and these Texas state medical boards attacking him because the insurance carrier doesn't want to pay for rescue workers sick or people sick from toxic mold syndrome and Katrina. It's all very evil. We're not going to take it anymore, people. This is the end of the road, and you know what? Like any parasite, we're due for a purge now, and it's time for us to no longer cooperate with the parasitic overlords, the elite, that are actually eating and sucking our blood.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
If I was just interested in pursuing, let's say, the Tesla technology on my own, would it be, or anybody else, would it be a good idea just go into electrical engineering, or is that just...
Get all the documents from Dr. Bearden.
Okay.
If you go to his website, we have some links on our site. If you go to the useful links area under clay and iron, you'll see all kinds of things on Dr. Bearden's technology. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's 36 different technologies already just from his site and linked alone of zero-point energy, okay? Then we talk about hydrogen fuel engines like Stanley Meyer that got killed the day after he actually discovered it. He drove his buggy all the way from California to the East Coast. After he had an awards dinner with the government, they finally accepted the fact that he could hydrolyze water and then burn it. They killed him. They poisoned him. Okay, that's over a decade ago. They don't want you to know about this stuff. They want you to
don't go to a university then.
Listen, you need to know universities are the footstool of the Illuminati. It's where they call out people that are truly bright, that can see beyond the matrix and beyond the so-called PhD defense. Only 4% of information is available to the PhD level. 96% is controlled by the Illuminati and all the higher levels, whatever you want to call it, in every society, and has been for thousands upon countless thousands of years, and is only by invitation only, whether you become a member of the Pythagorean Mathematical Society, the ancient sects that Da Vinci belonged to, or Robert Priestley, or you talk about Fahrenheit, the Fahrenheit thermometer system. All these people were high-level Illuminati Masons, every single one. Every university, every law school, every politician, every single religion on earth has been controlled by the same groups of people. Alan, your comments?
Well, it's true. I've had professors call me from very well-known universities, and 3 of them have confirmed this to me separately, that maybe 1 in 80 to 90 professors is actually given access to specific archives.
Right.
Just back to the rest, yeah.
Right. I was personally offered the option of having direct and complete access to the entire Vatican Library, which is the greatest library in the history of Earth. Okay? I've been recruited specifically into the super soldier program at UCLA back in 1977. I just wanted to do research on multiple sclerosis. And you don't get into these things, believe me, unless they see that you can see beyond the matrix, so they have to control you. Just like I'm sure Alan has been recruited many times because they think, well, you must be one of us because you can see through all our deviltry and you are not controlled and manipulated by it, and you manage to go through the phalanx of destruction and the gauntlet of the educational system, which is to dumb you down, is to dull the diamonds and shine up and polish the little pebbles. That's what the educational system is. It is the kindergarten system. Talk about that, if you can, Alan.
It's a fact. The hardest people to convince are your regular professors on down who haven't had access to higher knowledge. They think they've been taught it all, and so their minds are closed. And it's the same all the way down, right down to the general population. Oh,
I've talked to physicists who say, well, the tokamak nuclear fusion reactors don't exist. I said, I'm sorry. You're wrong. And I said, in fact, I'll give you the technical details of exactly what they do with torsional physics and hyperdimensional physics and how these things are available, because I know people in the NRO and National Security Agency, and they've told me face to face. So, that's just not true, okay? The same with biology. Do you know that the Germans started trying to do cloning in 1927? Do you know that they included in cloning some mammalian species in 1957, and humans that were very successful at chimeric super soldier cloning in 1982 at the Moscow Institute for Biological Research? I'm saying this because it's very classified. Now they're talking about chimeras. They're doing all kinds of stuff. Let me tell you, they're generating new species and new chimeric hybrids every day in underground facilities in the world, literally unleashing Pandora's box of hell. Genetic hell on Earth has already been released. Okay.
So you recommend just doing it on your own then?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, if you have a brain and you can go through and get these documents and start pulling up information, the greatest force on Earth right now is the Internet. That's why they're terrified. The Internet was invaded by the Department of Defense and handed over to Gates and all these other characters so they can control it. They can't control it. If they try to shut down all the servers and all the ports and all of the routers, we'll just reinvent it. We'll literally encrypt it on the cyberspace cloud if we have to, but they cannot shut down the world brain, the cyber brain that's now connecting us all through Internet communication, alternative broadcasting, and people are asking questions and they want answers. Alan, your closing comments.
Yes, we've got to remember, as I say, these characters plan the future by the centuries, just like a long-range business plan.
Yeah.
And they have many layers on the go simultaneously, even planning the next culture 50 years down the road.
Oh, even 1,000. Look at 500 years ago, Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, the Voynich documents. Check it out yourself, people.
With the weather machine in it, too, yeah.
Exactly. It's all right there. These super geniuses are down through the ages, have planned to control us like little puppets, and those that aren't controlled, they try to make us puppet masters as well, but we're not. Well, thank you, Alan. We'll have you back on soon. It's always amazing to go through so much news with you every day. We'll be back tomorrow with another amazing show.